Our speaker today is Joël Bonin. He is Associate Vice President, Development and Communications for the Quebec Region of the Nature Conservancy of Canada. He's been a champion of conservation for over 25 years. Throughout his career at NCC, he has significantly contributed to the protection of Quebec's biodiversity by overseeing more than 300 conservation projects, leading to the protection of more than 300 square kilometers. A biologist by profession, since completing his master's degree at McGill University, Joël has focused on the ecology of amphibians in southern Quebec. The author of several reports on the status of amphibian and reptile species in Quebec and Canada, he's also served as a member of the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in Canada. Joël's research has undoubtedly contributed to the body of knowledge on amphibians and their distribution throughout Quebec. His most noteworthy contributions include several extensions of species ranges and the discovery of the mountain dusky salamander in Canada. So thank you so much for Joël for taking the time to speak with us today, and you have the floor.
Well, thank you so much, Suzanne. Well, that's a generous introduction. I expect to talk to you about those 300 projects and about that rare salamander. I'll do my best to be short and sweet as you've been up to now. In fact, I thought I would give an intro on myself at first and how I first connected with the Rotary Club, and essentially go through some of the activities that have been ongoing in the area of the Nature Conservancy in Quebec, and where how we count on partners as yourself, you know. So I have a few slides. If you wish, I'll try to share those, and you'll tell me if it's well received on your end. But maybe I should ask questions. How many of you, I know that Tony Layton is around and is a good friend and partners, and I've seen Egan showing a business card dating back 15 years ago, but is there any others among the 15 or 20 people attending knowing about the Nature Conservancy?
Sure, I muted everybody, so they can't answer. I apologize.
Okay, well, I'll do my best to make it easy for everyone to, so let me share the, okay, so you shall see a presentation with the title page. Maybe Suzanne, yes. Can you put the finger up? Okay, that's good. Okay, so essentially I'll talk to you about where I am with the Nature Conservancy. My first connection, Suzanne was explaining that I had a chance to undertake a master's degree at McGill, and finding that little salamander, which is found at the middle of the stream, which was kind of a range extension of 100 kilometers from where it was known to be in the state of New York. And I've been then in contact with people, and I understood that all about nature is also some of the problems coming from people, but most of the solutions are coming from people. And I've met people since then for the last 32 years. I've been working with fellows that love nature and understand that it's all possible for us to make a significant difference in terms of science, but also in terms of preserving nature. And maybe some of you recognize the picture of the little boy bending and looking at probably a frog or dragonfly over the pond. That little boy is now grown up, mid-30s, and has been a very good player in hockey. Is the son of our of a photographer, Mark Tomalti, that has been very generous over years support us in granting us with pictures. So you can see his fine arts in the old Montreal. And from there, I've met with my first introduction with the Rotary Club has been in 97 at the Montreal Lakeshore section. And I've met with Peter Neville from the Care and Neville family, and he was asking tough questions. So I expect today I'll have some tough questions. And he came back with somewhat fair answers, I imagine. And their family decided that they will join the workforce and save one part of their asset, a large peat bog with rare plants on it, in the back of their property in front of the Lake Champlain, just near just south of Montreal. And so essentially, I've been with the Nature Conservancy, following, assisting, supporting families that has the same vision. And we are, as myself, I'm a biologist, but we are hundreds of biologists working for the organization. There's volunteers as yourself standing on board. Some are scientists, they are advisors for us. And they mostly make those introductions to people and families where every of those yellow dots are often the story of a family that has a connection with nature and decide to say, well, we want to make sure that our beautiful family land estate be there forever, be there for our next generation of child, be there for our neighbors, our friends, the children of our friends, and for our entire community. And it turns out that in many instances, when comes the time that their land goes from one generation to the other, that's when they take that decision. How can we make this happen? Can we afford donating it? Shall we sell it to a land trust such as the Nature Conservancy? That's essentially what the people know of what we do. And that's probably what we do best, is to be the companion of those families that are building the natural legacy of our country. So that has been ongoing for thousands of times over the last 50 or almost 60 years. And we've been doing science work to understand where the best sites are. We've been protecting wildlife to those gifts of land, those purchase of land. We've been taking care of those land by looking after some of the species that are found there, chasing away some of the invasive species, making sure that these stay in good condition. And mostly what we've done is we've engaged people in communities from the neighborhood to take care of those assets and make it fruitful, So for about 60 years, we raise funds, and most of the funds goes on land conservation portion. I would say less than a quarter, 20% or less goes to engaging people and making sure that these people are being able to bring along new projects and new initiatives. So maybe here are some, just to give you the size of it, from tiny one to larger one. The Hébert family from Group Park Avenue, the father, the senior Norman Hébert, passed away 6 years ago. He had acquired an island west of Montreal. This is within at the edges of the Lake of Two Mountains and Lake Saint Louis, just next to the Pont de l'Île-aux-Tours. And it's a small island, tiny island used by map turtles and home to various nut trees. And they had that in their family. And when he passed away, his children decided that should be a legacy, and they gave the island to the Nature Conservancy in order to build up more land protected in the western part of the island. This is a small, and probably very few of you would have noticed that island as part of the archipelago over there. But down the road, this is an additional piece to the big puzzle, we face. Another example is the Green Mountain Nature Reserve. This is more than 100 square kilometers of natural wilderness in the Eastern Township. Dozens of families take the same decision. You know, they took the same decision to give portion or to sell at bargain. We say sell at low price their land to the Nature Conservancy. We had supporters, more than 300 supporters that grants funding to the Nature Conservancy to acquire the summit, the run top from the ski hill owners, the Boulanger family, and then when the ski hill changed, and in 2016 we've acquired 2/3 of their land in order to expand the wilderness area. So it's now called the Green Mountains Nature Reserve. It's open to the public. The people can walk. There's volunteers that clean the trails. There's kids that are learning nature with summer camps over there, all run through a volunteer organization from various origin, but grassroots within the area. And this is expanding from the border, from the state of Vermont north to even expanding north of the Highway 10, you know, north of Harford Park. Essentially, those initiatives, you know, multiple families over here, single families giving islands, these are all part of a large effort. I put that picture for Tony Layton, who's here and invited me to come along. Tony is one of his one member of a community up north in Saint-Agathe-des-Monts. He would say, "My goodness, Joël, there's nicer pictures than those, you know, in Saint-Agathe, and you could have had a great tribute to the Oliver family and all of the other families, including the partners in Lac Noir Holding that set aside those hundreds of acres, you know, that make kind of a link between Lac Brûlé, the uplands, and on the opposite side of the highway, Lac Manitou. But I felt that that picture was showing more or less a vision of the future, where our young people and our scientists are designing essentially wildlife corridors. This is a picture taken under the Highway 117. We acquired, thanks to supporters from the area, that piece of land that connects both the assets that were created, initiated thanks to the William Oliver estate, to another group that you might have heard of, Lac Manitou Conservation, which is further south. And as you see at the bottom of the screen, there's a moose going by overnight. And in the daytime, it's cyclists that are using the Petit Train du Nord that goes underneath the highway. And this will be transformed. In fact, this summer and this fall, there's some more plantation, and that the work started a year ago. We are transforming this as a more friendly passage for our corridor for wildlife. And we are at the same time sending a message to the daytime users that nature is here, nature needs you, and needs our respect, and also thanks the generosity of families that decided to create legacy on both sides of the highways in order for those species to be able to wander and be safe in nature. So all of these individual gestures are seen as Japanese steps, more or less. They are connecting one after the other nature and wilderness that are found in national parks, in the Adirondack Preserve south of the borders. And I was introduced to the Nature Conservancy by my work, you know, as a scientist, and the fact that I found a species that was 100 kilometers north than what we thought. Nowadays, scientists are finding species that are moving north at the same pace. Essentially, over 20 years, they would have traveled, you know, or moved northward by about 100 kilometers. And this is all linked to climate change. Essentially, research are showing that species are moving north in various ways, in various corridors, depending on where the nature is suitable for them to establish new colonies and move further away. They are moving north because the condition of our planet is really, it's eating up, you know, and some of the species that were limited by heavy winter or shorter summer are now being able to live further north. All of that is requiring that we do adapt, and that we do provide a welcoming landscape for those species, those natural species, especially east of the Great Lakes. The Quebec region, in fact, if I go back to the former slides, we see that east of the Great Lakes, there's quite few of those wilderness corridors that go across the St. Lawrence Valley, either west or east of Montreal, and make sure that the species will be moving north and sustaining their population. The Nature Conservancy of Canada is with our team of scientists is looking at all of those corridors, coast to coast, in the most crowded portion of our country, the most transformed portion of our country, the southern part of our country, in order to identify our priorities and where to act, and engaging more families and more estates to join in and make it happen, which is protecting our landscape. I just want to conclude that we welcome last fall a new president for our CEO for our organization. She's a French Canadian. Her name is Catherine Grenier. She has been working for Parks Canada, for Parks Quebec, and now lead the workforce of the Nature Conservancy. We concluded at the same time a $750 million campaign that lasted over more than, since 2000, over more than 7 years. And we are setting now new goals in order to meet the challenge of protecting 30% of our landscape by 2030. And essentially, our strategic plan is drafted as thinking big, but thinking with others, you know, making sure that what can be achieved will be through partnership, you know. Essentially the same thing that I've kind of understood 30 years ago, which is that all of this can happen only with people. I'm very impressed by the Rotary Club, how engaged you are, and your communities are capable. People can be when they work together, making sure that we can sustain our quality of life in all regions. In all regions where we work, we cross community members and volunteers, and I would encourage you and other friends of yours to consider either volunteering or just enjoying nature on some of the sites that the Nature Conservancy has been able to set aside, thanks to Canadians, thanks to Quebecers over years. And I welcome you to ask any questions you have to be able to assist you more in this venture to protect our nature. Suzanne, thank you so much to granting me that opportunity for speaking to you today.
Thank you very much, Joël. And before a proper thank you, I'm going to ask if anyone does have any questions for Joël. Oh, we've got Malcolm. Malcolm, please go ahead.
Yes, Joël, I wasn't aware, do you have any sites on the island of Montreal?
Yeah, we do have some properties on the island of Montreal. On the western part of the island, for example, we have a site next to the Arboretum Morgan that was, thanks to the James Morgan estate, established a few years ago. The Alberta Island is just offshore in that same area. And we have sites on the Laval Island. We own the Rapide de la Chine Islands also in front of the, so we are part of that regional park, which is in front of the rapids of the Rapide de la Chine. So these are areas that we have, I would say mainly on the island. We own islands east of Montreal. One is a regional park. It's called Île Bonfoin. It's part of the Parc de Rivière des Prairies. So that's so we are expanding in fact regional park and granting some of those land we co-own with the city of Montreal to expand their network of parks. We just received in February a donation of an island which is in between Montreal and Laval, just east of Ile Bizarre. It's called it's from the Wikström family. So you can see it when you go and walk on the, there's a outing on the Parc de l'Île Bizarre. If you go in that area, and if you look on the river, that's the first island you see, which is the only one wild.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Joël?
I do.
Go for
I
it.
just,
Jim.
do you have any association with Ducks Unlimited?
We do. It's a great partner. In fact, the Nature Conservancy is the largest owners of islands on the St. Lawrence River, but in many instances, we are partners with Ducks Unlimited where they establish or improve wetlands. So especially in the Sorel area, but even close to Repentigny and Pointe-aux-Trembles, we've acquired islands together. Ducks Unlimited, for those who want to know, they are a conservation organization as the Nature Conservancy. They own land, but they mostly manage wetlands and establish wetlands on private properties. So over years, the Nature Conservancy of Canada partners with Ducks Unlimited in order to expand the network of protected areas and make sure that we have a mix of, upland, wetlands, plenty of ducks. So the next chairman of the Ducks Unlimited is expected to be Roger Deschambault, which is living in Saint-Lambert, so a Quebecer. That will be an interesting asset to see how their work will expand. So yes, it's. Are you a member and supporter, Jim?
No, but I was never a member, but I spent a lot of money at their auctions over the years.
Well,
and their parties in the West Island. So
yeah,
I know a few members that like to. I always find Ducks Unlimited interesting because they conserve land parties so that their members can go out and shoot ducks.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's but they. I mean, there's everyone's asked us questions about hunting and fishing. I mean, how can we handle this? And there's a balance. South of the St. Lawrence River, currently there's no more wolf. And as you see, the deer population is just rising, and hunting is almost a necessity in order to balance their pressure on the forest and vegetation. They graze and they transform our forest. So, and also in order to protect some wildlife, bobcats, lynx, from poaching, the presence of respectful hunters is a plus value. So, so I would say that even if we want to protect every species, and there's some every situation has to be looked at in a specific way. So regarding this, yeah.
Then I have one last question. I'll shut up.
Go for it.
In terms of financing percentages, what comes from government, from private donations, and from corporations?
Yes, well, that's a very good question. Over years, if I do an average, it's about half in the province of Quebec, I would say mostly. It's about half from the government, half from the private sector. Both level of government, federal and provincial, the private sector is largely families, individuals. Corporations are more and more enthusiastic about carbon credits. So if some of you are part of the businesses that are looking for, they call that being neutral in terms of carbon. And so the Nature Conservancy of Canada is able to provide carbon credits because these are eligible for conservation work. So if there's any question down the road, and if you know people that wish to know more, they are more than pleased to connect with me. So essentially the private sector is mostly individuals, families, corporation. And what is good is that the donation that individuals are making are doubled, at least by our governmental grants. So the Nature Conservancy has been in a position to multiply the power of individual giving. So as much as you get a tax receipting for giving, we also are able to double the impact. So to do twice more work than with the same amount of money.
Joel, are your properties exempt from property tax?
Well, that's another big question. We've been at work. I mean, we pay tax. We pay tax on our properties. We've got some exemption, and it is up to the municipalities to decide. We approached the provincial government over many years. In other provinces, in most provinces, I would say that there's tax exemption. In some other, it's a rebate. In Quebec, for the first year, we've got a reimbursement of tax. This will be the first year this year. We tried to, for the sake of the Nature Conservancy, but any other, there's hundreds of organizations as ours, smaller, local, but they are facing the same challenges that as you acquire land, especially valued land, the realty tax is a real burden. So currently we do pay tax. We get, in most instances, rebate from the municipalities, and we hope for a full reimbursement or full exemption thanks to bylaws as it is enforced in other provinces. That's an important one. Yeah. The Griffin family is a very supportive family. I don't know if you're related to Jan Griffin or Anne Griffin, or is Anne being the artist. She, with her husband, gave a large 2,000-acre protected areas near Mirabel along the North River. I don't know if these are related to you, Jim. But...
They're the good Griffins.
Try and keep up with the Griffins, Jim.
Joël, I have a question. I'm wondering if with all of the media attention that climate change and environmental protection has gotten over the years, has it become easier for you to get cooperation from governments, whether federal or provincial?
It's true, yes. And frankly, we've got cooperation from various parties. Various at the provincial level as well as the federal level. So I don't want to. I know that there was a question for the General Assembly of the Rotary Club to discuss about the politics earlier on. But essentially, I think that citizens are expressing their views, and there's more and more people that are knocking at the door in order to do their part, And the government of Quebec signed an historic contribution agreement. We've obtained a 50 million grant agreement from the province of Quebec. We distributed those funds. We distributed to every land trust, across the province. This is a matching grant. So any donors from the Quebec province that are supporting an initiative of conservation in their neighborhood would have a chance to reach their goal twice faster thanks to that matching grant. And the federal government also had a similar grant over years, and we are in discussion with them to introduce a new one because it's the last year for that federal matching grant. I think that for the last 20 years, these has been in place, but they've been growing their contribution in order to encourage more and more Canadian and more Quebecers to do the same. So I think that the greater we have the success, it's really snowball. It's really growing over years, and we feel this a level of anxiety as part of our community and as part of the supporters, but we also feel a great and strong message of hope, because there's more and more people that join in, and these solutions are long and lasting and solid. As we protect nature, we see all of the benefits of it, even on the quality of air, on the surrounding temperature, and on the fact that our children are in fact being able to enjoy nature with either free access or easy access to natural landscape next to their door.
Thank you. Thank you. Jim is telling me that he does have a last question. Where are you, Jim? We've got the flag flying here. Jim, did you want to ask your question?
Yes. I didn't say it would be the last question necessarily. But Joël, I'd like to know, you mentioned about carbon credits. How does the Conservancy grant or give carbon credits to companies?
Well, it's a complex question, but I will answer it in the simplest way along. So we have carbon credits are established with third parties assessment. There's various verification being made, and they need to be certified. So essentially, the Nature Conservancy has a project where we obtain the certification that these carbon can be counted, measured, and monitored over a century. So this is possible all across the country. But this is what we call the voluntary market. Okay, so it's not for the industry that are under the provincial laws, for example, that have the obligation to meet some targets. These credits that we have are what we call the voluntary market, which is accessible everywhere in the world. We have buyers from the US, we have buyers from Europe, and those and it does reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, essentially. We have so for big buyers, we sell directly. Microsoft, Google's, they are acquiring. But for smaller buyers, there's even some carbon available on the market that are associated with the Nature Conservancy of Canada. In Quebec, it's called Planétaire or Unisphera, the provider of those carbon. But these are both on the voluntary market. So if the Rotary Club, for example, was deciding to conduct an activity and say, well, we want to be carbon neutral, and how can we meet that challenge? Well, the first thing you would be asked to is to reduce the amount of carbon you use, to change your behavior as much as you can. But if there's some activities that you cannot change, then you could acquire some carbon credits, and therefore it would be some more trees being planted, some more forests being saved, and this is the way that these carbon are gathered, essentially. So, but I'll be more than pleased again if there's any question, and especially for corporations that face some challenges with the new upcoming trend, just to make sure that there's no confusion, because it's quite technical, and it's a fairly long process for a corporation to become carbon.
You're right. We had a guest speaker last week talking about cryptocurrencies, and I think that was easier to understand than carbon credits. Like, where do you actually sell credits? So where do
Yes,
you get
exactly.
your credits from, and do people actually give you the money?
Yes, exactly. So, and the organization, so we sell credits from, well, if you wish that we go further in depth, essentially, and for any, this is true for anyone. So there's the concept of additionality. So you need to make sure that you improve the situation, that there's more trees that are growing, that there's more carbon that are captured. So if you want to understand it, it's that on the planet, what happened is that we took from the ground with the fossils fuels, we took carbons that were captured underneath the earth, you know, from the Precambrian time, and we burned them, and they came up in the atmosphere. So what we try to do planet-wise, you know, we try to reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, because it creates that greenhouse effect, you know, and it keeps the heat at the surface of the planet, and it eat up our climate. You know, that's a problem. So how can we reduce the carbon? You know, how can we bring back the carbon to another place than the atmosphere? So the way to do it is to capture the carbon in trees, for example. That's the most efficient way, in fact. So branches, the wood, there's a lot of carbon to keep those structures. So, so this is what we do at the Nature Conservancy. We do protect forests, and we do keep those forests in order for them to grow. We have to monitor with scientists, we have to measure how much carbon every year these forests are growing, and how much carbon are being kept in the long run, you know, for centuries. And this in taking in consideration the fires, taking in consideration tornadoes. So you've heard about a lot of fires, and everyone are wondering how all of that carbon is going back to the planet. Yes, to the atmosphere. Yes, but down the road, we need to have a positive result. You know, more carbon being brought back into branches and trees than sent to the atmosphere. So that's the way that's the way the process is being done. So what you'll find on the market is there are some projects that are about tree plantation. There's some projects that are about reduction or the growing of the forest, or managing the forest better in order that it reduce the loss of carbon. The other, we are developing with an insurance company, we are developing a new way to avoid, if you turn a peatland into a cranberry field, you will release a lot of carbon that has been sequestered, you know, captured in that peatland for thousands of years. So, so these are key habitat that we want to protect. So, so one thing is that if somebody said, well, I'll give you some money in order for you to capture that carbon, they give us a bit of money. It might cover about 10% of the land value, you know, but we use that 10% and we use some other money and we protect those land. And these are carbon that are captured, and we have to safeguard that for more than a century in order for that carbon to be considered captured and sequestered, you know, avoiding that it go back in the atmosphere. So that's a global principle. I think that the fact that more and more nations are putting forward carbon market, what it does is that it provides a solution to people. You know, money is just a transactional solution. So it gives an opportunity for businesses or people that are not involved in nature to contribute to capture the carbon, you know, and to pay for it, you know. And organizations such as the Nature Conservancy or any others are undertaking with that money activities with the guarantee that it will last for more than a century, activities that are keeping the carbon at the ground level, you know, or underground. So that's what we do. I don't know if it is understood, but that's, and globally, there will be more and more carbon that will be sequestered and guard thanks to the workforce of investors. That's essentially if everyone were contributing to a bank in order to keep the carbon in a stable position. That's the usefulness of the carbon credit market, around the world. So the Nature Conservancy, other organizations are taking part of that effort and using that mean. I would say that 99% of our projects are not on the financed by carbon, because it's complex to do it. There's a lot of work to do in order to measure and guarantee that the carbon are there. So in most instances, it doesn't worth the effort. But for a big project, we have a massive project in British Columbia, and that's the only project currently that we have that is banking that with the carbon, for which there's research and monitoring undertaken. It's called Darkwood. So that's a large project, the size of the Saint Maurice National Park, Maurice National Park, for example. So that will give you 350
Thank you very much.
square kilometer.
Okay, Jim? Yeah. Okay, we have a question from Merle. Let's make this the last one, or we're going to be keeping Joël here all day. Are there any long-range plans to handle human encroachment?
Wow, that's a very good question. There's, well, it's true that it's a continuous bulldozers. Our footprint is expanding and expanding. You've seen through the presentation that we are working into science work to identify key areas to make these important to the eyes of everyone. So, for example, the wildlife corridor, we work with municipalities, with MRCs, with local and regional governments in order for them to establish rules and principles where a wildlife corridor will be recognized. So as much as we do protect land through private ownership, as the way we do at the Nature Conservancy, we understand that there's a need to establish rules and identify key areas and create partnership with municipalities, because at the scale and at the speed of growth of our population and how the human footprint is just expanding, it's important that we be more and more allies and working toward this. So that's one example. I think that for in our country, in our provinces, we have more and more allies, more and more people in administration that are supportive and helping out to make sure that these sites are set aside, waiting for a stronger protection be established on those sites. And it doesn't mean that the people cannot live there, but they simply reduce the amount of disruption. Well, thank you so much.
It is we who thank you, Joël, for taking the time to speak with us today. For those of us who knew little or nothing about NCC, Nature Conservancy of Canada, this has been enlightening. And also for those of us, and I would dare to say all of us who are concerned about the environment, this is extremely encouraging. And you've been at this a long time, and your achievements are extraordinary. So we thank you for your dedication. And we thank Tony Layton for inviting you. So thank you so much, Joël.
Well, next time I hope we'll be able to have a face-to-face meeting and maybe a little walk in the gardens next to the Victoria Hall. It's a fantastic place, and please keep up your good work. I mean, I really appreciate the worldwide effort of Rotary Club. Thank you so much.
Thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. And you're very welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but it's going to be bits and bobs, so we will not be offended if you have to go.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.